Well, let's get this out of the way first. Final Fantasy 16 is an awful PC port, and for most people, you're not going to be hitting 60 FPS. And even if you have the best PC out there, you're going to barely be getting 60 FPS. And for a lot of people, and if you don't have the best PC out there, you also probably get a lot of stuttering. This game is broken, and it's one of the worst optimized games out there, and this PC port is not getting enough flack for how bad it is. If you plan to buy this game on PC, keep in mind that by the time you actually get to the main game and not the prologue, it'll be too late for a refund, and the prologue conveniently performs a lot better than the rest of the game. So check it online, check benchmarks, because this game is a pain. I'm on a 700X and a 3080, and no matter what I done for graphics or resolution and upscaling and settings, 60 FPS, a solid 60 FPS is out the window. That's pretty bad if that's helpful. Another big question most people have: is this a Final Fantasy game? I would say no. Like, it's so little of what you call a Final Fantasy game that it like comes around to the point where you're not really bothered anymore. At least that was for me. Like, you just forget that you're going to be playing a Final Fantasy game. But then when you finish the game and come off it, you're like, yeah, that's not really what I think of Final Fantasy. So it's not something that I hold against the game, but it is pretty disappointing. The game only has one playable character, while other characters, for the most part, do nothing, and for a small bit in the game where you do have an ally, they awkwardly walk around and do the odd attack. So I say it's not anything like Final Fantasy. There's Prelude, there's the main thing of Final Fantasy, there's Moogles and Chocobos. And there's a Sid, but that's all very surface level basic stuff, and any game could really have. I mean, not those specific things, you know. So I think let's start off by combat. And the combat in this game is mindless, and it's very simple, it's very easy, but it's enjoyable. It's just fun combat. So the basis of combat in this game is you spam all your abilities, and then you wait for your abilities to recharge, and you spam them again. I know that sounds really boring, but that's practically how combat is in this game. You unlock more abilities over time through story progression, and then you can unlock, and then when you unlock a set of abilities, you can unlock abilities in that set and upgrade them, and you can have 6 abilities at once, plus each set, once it's equipped, comes with another ability like a dash or a grab. Enemies have a stagger meter. When it goes halfway, they get a second of stun. Goes all the way down, they go to the ground completely unable to move or attack until it regenerates, which how long that takes depends on how much stagger they had. Some attacks do more damage, while others do more stagger. Despite the set of different abilities in this game, there's just no elemental weaknesses or resistances. Every enemy will react the same to every ability, and that's sort of odd. There's only one weapon in this game. You got a standard sword, and that's it. You can obviously upgrade the sword, but that just affects damage by a few points. Same goes for gauntlets and armor, and for equipment, which we can have 3 of. Most equipment does nothing but a few more damage, a few seconds of ability cooldown. There's 1 or 2 that change things up. There's also a remnant break, which you just activate and you spam attack. So yeah, very basic combat, but it's fun and enjoyable, and it looks cool, and the music's cool. Which I think about the music. I don't like the soundtrack in this game overall. Like, there's the good tracks in this game are great and they're amazing, but there's a lot of tracks that go for a weird style, and they normally play during major moments. Like, no spoilers, but there's a few major boss fights in this game where you're just hearing the most epic music ever, but you hear a weird like techno arcadey style to them. Again, not the worst thing in the world, but it's very jarring for those moments specifically. But when it's good, and you know, I'm in the minority there when it comes to those tracks. A lot of people seem to like them, and even if you don't, you'll probably come out of the game remembering the few good tracks and forgetting everything else. It's not like, oh yeah, this game had a bad soundtrack. Just when you really think about it. When I really think about it, I don't think, oh yeah, that wasn't good overall. Characters. I don't think this game has that many interesting or good characters. The game's focus is on Clive, but Clive has very little conflict near the end of the game. And his goal just snaps to something else near the end of the game, and like kind of forgets on his previous goal. And that bothers me a lot. Other characters in this game, like Jill and Gav. Yes, there's a character called Gav, and he's practically... Well, there's no character in this game that's the main character besides Clive, but Gav is practically a secondary character. And, you know, if you do side quests involving them, and when you get to the end of the game, there's some personality to them. But it's very surface level. There were 3 characters in this game that I really liked. That being Byron, Sid, and then Mid. Thing is, these characters, again, are only secondary characters. And Sid doesn't play that big of a role near the end. Meanwhile, the other 2 only really show up in the second half. And they also show up like really strangely, like, I'm not gonna spoil who they are, but they're characters who probably should have been mentioned earlier, but then they randomly say, oh yeah, let's go see X. Ah yes, person X. Like, what? Games never told us about these people before, you know, probably should have. And I also find that weird. But none of the characters what I say are bad or annoying. And then every other character in this game is practically a NPC. Well, I mean they're all NPCs besides Clive, because they're not playable, but they're tertiary or even worse. So like Jill, she's mostly calm and polite, and she also has trauma that doesn't really ever affect her. Great job. There's Gav, who's what you expect out of someone called Gav. He likes drinking, he's friendly, he likes to joke a bit. He's a scout. That's it. I can't talk too much about other characters without spoilers, but Mid, Byron, and Sid don't have that much of a role, or Sid has a role throughout the game. And they all joke a lot, they're sarcastic, they're upbeat and they're funny, which is probably why I like them. Now the story of this game is kind of weird. Practically, it starts off about revenge, then it goes to slavery, then it goes to save the world, and then still slavery. It's really weird, and I don't like the story too much. And the only thing I say made it worth it is the few bits of character moments there are. A few of which actually do appear in the side quests, which I'll get to. Made it a bit what made it worth it, but I didn't find the story that interesting. Past the first third, it's not as mature and deep as you would think. It's not overly thorough, but it tries to present itself as a much more dark, gritty, serious and deep than it actually is, which definitely hurts it a lot, especially with how much it persists. Like, there's 3 different end goals for Clive, and none of them really fit into each other properly, and none of them feel like they conclude properly. Now, side quests in this game are mostly terrible. They are long, they are drawn out, there's nothing you do in them besides fight, and there's a ton of them. But there is a few side quests that are worth doing. But only a few. And obviously, unless you're gonna book them up beforehand, yeah, there's not really any point in doing them. There is specific side quests that are marked with a plus icon, and they give you an in-game benefit, like an upgraded blacksmith or a chocobo. And those are definitely worth doing, but the rest probably should be ignored, unless you really like this game. And as I said, the side quests, they're just fighting. That's this entire game. There's no other gameplay in this game. There's no mini games, there's no platforming, there's nothing that requires a different fighting style or anything. You fight one way, and you fight, and that's the entire gameplay for the whole game. There's a lot of games that are like this, but games that are 80 hours are normally a lot more varied. And this wasn't too much of a problem for me, but if you don't want just combat, this isn't a game for you. Right? This game is combat, cutscene, combat. For the entire game, the DLC and all the side quests. There's no single mini game or anything. Which is where it's a character action game and not an RPG thing also comes from. I tend to agree. The cutscene can be quite lengthy, might expect that of its RPG. But yeah, this game definitely isn't an RPG, really. It's an action game. And that's okay, as long as you know what you're getting into. So I sound really negative, but I think the combat, as basic as it is fun enough to get you through the 80 hours. And I think the few moments here and there where the characters and story are intriguing is also enough to get you through the 80 hours. But I don't personally think you come out there saying that was a perfect experience, and when I enjoyed it when I played the game, looking back on the game after the fact, I don't really see anything special with the game or unique. Like, there's also other games that have good action-y combat, and the game's not worth playing for the story and the characters alone. But when it goes on sale, and you want an action game to play for 70 hours, you're not going to be too disappointed by XVI. But which meant not talking about the PC port. The PC port you're definitely going to be disappointed by.